Hello, hello, hello. My name is Felix. I'm from Ledger, and if you guys are aware, I'm here to answer all of the questions you might have with regards to your Ledger device, with regards to managing your assets, things like that. Always trying to keep you guys safe as well. So one thing I always mention, main thing, I think I mentioned it too often. Please don't give out your 24 words. Don't sign any transactions you don't trust. Those are basically most of it. Uh, but let's get let's get to it and answer all the questions. I can see a bunch of you guys popping them into chat. Um, if you guys have any questions, I'll be here for about an hour, and yeah, we can go through that straight away. First, we had Mish J. Probably I didn't butcher that. You mentioned, is there any way to insert a unique ID into a Ledger Nano X device? You've seen some articles where you can do that with an APDU command, but currently, is there any way to insert ID using Golang or JS JavaScript? So, uh, but still, I can't achieve what you expected. Um, I think in this case, I'd be hoping to get more information from you, Ms. J. Um, what specific thing you might be trying to do. One of the things that I might suggest, actually, something that I actually do when I need help uh, developing my own things, is actually just to head over to the developers uh, page. It's just developers.ledger.com. And you can see here, you can actually go through and you can actually learn how to create your own app, whether that's an app on Ledger to the Ledger device, whether you need, if you're a blockchain company and you need a team to help, our team to help you, get connected or something like that. Or let's say if you've got a token that you want to see if you can add into Ledger Live, right? So these are a lot of the things that uh, the website can help you with, integrating your DApp as well. So if you want to, let's say, connect your Ledger device to be able to run a local app, DApp or something like that, interact with a smart contract. If you want to make your own DEX, for example, that kind of thing. So um, if you can go into more detail, you can always get a hold of us. I think one of the other things as well is jumping onto our Discord, and actually that way we can actually come have a chat with you. You can list yourself as a developer as well. So if Michelle, if you see this, I'm not sure if you're still um, online at the moment. You can. Oh yeah, I think you mentioned there. I think a serial number would be a unique one. Can I fetch a serial number of that device using Golang or JS? Name can be unique, right? Can I fetch that? Um, hmm. Right off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure if you can fetch, like, let's say, the Bluetooth name, for example, or a serial number. So, yeah, I would say jump on the Discord for that one just to double check. But I don't, off the top of my head, I'm not sure that's possible. But they will be able to correct me on that very specifically. So, sorry I couldn't help you with that specific answer, but that is a very um, interesting question to ask. So, love that. Um, Jump on, they'll be able to have a chat with you. Just make sure you list yourself as a developer, and then you'll be able to see the developer section where you can ask that specific question, and they'll be able to give you a hand from for that as well. Let's move on. Next question I had was from JD. You mentioned that you're unable to send funds through Binance Chain, so I'm assuming it's Binance Smart Chain, but I'll double check and I'll also consider Binance Chain as well in answering the question. You reinstalled and updated the Ledger device, I'm assuming, and Ledger Live, and you cleared the cache, yet all the transactions are hung up. So they're not confirming, and the label shows they're still ascending for the last couple of days. Um, so what I might want to consider is potentially if the transactions were made with a low transaction fee, you can potentially use something like MetaMask. I've actually set it up already, so I've got something like my MetaMask with a local network, and the specific thing that I might suggest that you do, and this is fake Ethereum by the way, this is a local network, is that you, if let's say a transaction is pending, you can go into MetaMask. You can sometimes see that it's pending there. I normally don't like to use that feature personally. One thing that I always do if something is not confirming is to just essentially rebroadcast a transaction for zero value, let's say just to whatever address actually. Let's just use this one. And it's a zero value transaction, but you want to set the you want to make sure you set the nonce. You can see I have a couple pending transactions I was testing around. You can see the custom nonce here, and that way you can actually. It's not necessarily. It's essentially will cancel the transaction. Essentially, you broadcast over the transaction, and you actually the nodes prioritize the transaction with specifically the higher transaction fee to make sure that you broadcast over it. So that's the thing that I would normally suggest. That comes to the top of my mind in terms of resolving that for you there, JD. That's what I would generally suggest in particular. Vasil Radu, you mentioned, hello, you're not able to receive your invoice for your last purchase. I actually had a quick scan of the messages. Actually, just sent you a message, Vasil. So you should have something in your email with regards to that already. Just give us a shout if you don't receive it or anything like that. But yeah, actually tried to do that beforehand, so you should be all good. You should have a link to be able to get that invoice accordingly. Next up, if I just jump back over, we have D Moore. You mentioned you sent Arbitrum from your Coinbase account on Arbitrum network to your Ethereum address. Is it possible to get it back? One thing to note is that you definitely, if you have the recovery phrase and everything like that, you definitely should be able to manage the same address. What's most likely happened is that the address or the assets are actually on a different network. So they're not on Ethereum mainnet, so where you might use Etherscan to see the transaction, you might need to see the transaction on something like Arbiscan, and then it's on the network Arbitrum, and you would need to go about and go and manage the account on that specific network. So what I might suggest, because Ledger Live specifically doesn't support Arbitrum at this stage, something I know that is coming very soon, is that you can use something. There is definitely a support article, so you can type in Arbitrum, and there is an article for that in particular. I use it quite regularly, so you can actually definitely be able to do that while connecting your Ledger device to something like MetaMask. You can use other ones like Rabby or Tahoe as well to connect to your device, first of all. The next thing I think it'll mention here is you can add the RPC. Let's see if I go down here. It says to add the network. You can add the default network, or you can go to somewhere like chainlist.org is one that I use. So you can add a network to be able to connect to Arbitrum. So you can see here Arbitrum. If I type in at the top, you should be able to see that come up as well. If I hit enter too. Or it'll be, if I scroll down, it might be, yeah, there we go. So there's Arbitrum right there. So you should be able to, once you add that, you should be able to manage the assets at that specific address as well. So shouldn't be a problem in managing ARB, just not something that's on, it's on a network that Ledger Live doesn't currently support. So give us a shout if you need help with that one, but you definitely should be able to manage your ARB, as I actually have done as well. All right, next question. Marek, you've mentioned, I currently have a Ledger Nano X and want to buy a Ledger Nano S Plus and restore it with my recovery phrase to have 2 copies of the same device. I want to ask whether I can manage my crypto using Ledger Live with both of them, since they are different. I want to manage my crypto using either of the ledgers on the same PC. That is exactly how it would work. I actually do this myself. So I have a Ledger Nano S Plus and a Ledger Nano X, and without even going between without even removing the applications, you'll be able to use different devices and you'll be able to manage everything accordingly. So that should definitely be something that you should be able to do. Let let us know if you have any trouble or anything like that. But yeah, shouldn't be an issue for you to do whatsoever. All right, just gonna type, but we'll jump onto a couple of other shout outs and questions. Okay. So next we had Hisham Arazi, hello bro, hello. Bryce with the bonjour. And next we had Apple. Apple, you mentioned how would you stake Ethereum? Now, there's a couple of options that we can potentially use. I think the main one that I might consider is going to be something like Lido or some kind of liquid staked derivative. Lido is probably the one that is most common. You can actually find Lido in our Discover section, if I remember correctly. You can find it on online as well. You can swap to STETH, which is the staked Ethereum staked derivative equivalent from Lido specifically. If I wait for this to load, but that would probably be the most common option. You've got other liquid stake derivatives as well that you can use. There are other potential options if you're more technically minded. You could use something, you could actually stake on your own. You could use a service like Kiln, or you could use a service like Rocket Pool to actually manage the staking for you. So you do have a couple of options there. It just depends on what you're comfortable with, what your risk profile is, and specifically what you want to do. Totally up to you in terms of what you'd want to do there. All right. Next up, we had whipped cream. Can you make an air-gapped stacks? No Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, no anything but QR code scan through the camera. I will definitely pass on the feedback, although that wouldn't be the way that the stacks would work in general. We would essentially, you would normally connect to the device to actually have the transactions be signed on the device itself and then be transferred out. So in terms of security, that's not something I would necessarily worry about. You can turn off Bluetooth or anything like that for sure. The QR code that you can use on the device could be for potentially for receiving assets or something like that. But yeah, I'll definitely pass on that feedback because I think we are always down for more ideas and we want to know what you guys want. So 100%, I'll make sure to pass that on as well. Next, we had Tyran Garth Classens. You've mentioned the support team at Ledger are on another level. Thank you. I actually didn't pre-read this. Who else does these support sessions? Thank you for the respect as well. There's lots of us as well, thankfully. But you've got a question here. You mentioned when do you expect to add new token types like ARB? So ARB specifically would be one that I was waiting for this to load, but I'll come back to it if it does. Is specifically because of network. So once we are able to support Arbitrum, I would definitely suspect that ARB would be one of the tokens that we would want to support, but wouldn't be something you'd be able to manage within Ledger Live as of yet, but you'll definitely be able to do it with something I think I mentioned before, MetaMask, Rabi, Tahoe, those kinds of wallets as well. So in the meantime, definitely something you can do, and I'm not sure that I mentioned it before, but you can always actually add tokens that for networks that are already supported in Ledger Live by requesting them here, especially if you're part of the dev team. If there's something specific, our devs will have a look through it and see if we can add it onto our asset list as well. So 100%. All right. Mister, you mentioned you raised the question in Discord, but no response. Um, yes. I mean, I can, if you raise a ticket with us, maybe I can try to liaise internally, um, or I can try and double check myself, but might take a little bit more time. Maybe drop a ticket number in the chat and I'll actually pick it up myself in particular, if that's the case. Maybe that way we'll try to get an answer to you in particular. Um, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, but I know the guys are pretty swamped sometimes, so I'll see if I can look into that myself for you. No worries. Might not be possible, but yeah, at least this way we'll double check. All right. Whipped cream, following up, you mentioned wishing the stacks was air gapped, only with a QR code as a way to interact with the world. It's missing that security architecture. Again, I can pass that feedback on, but there isn't necessarily anything like, because the recovery phrase isn't going to be online ever. It is essentially there is it is has the same effect as being air gapped. Um, so I do understand the wish to do so. So obviously going to pass on that feedback. I think it'd be pretty cool as well because everyone has their own risk profiles, right? So 100%. All right, let's keep going. We've got MG. You've mentioned, is it possible with new technology, AI, that someone can find the 24-word recovery phrase of each ledger? If no, why not? The system is so dangerous. All right, so I'm just going to double check because you did mention the connection, but I think it is an issue with the mic. So um, I'll keep going. Oh, it's an issue with my voice. With regards to the um, the the knowing of the 24 words, even if you were going to do this in a way that was deterministic, so if you're going to scan for all the 24 words, it's not. It would not be possible, or the risks of doing so are infinitesimal. There is a Ledger Academy article about this in particular that goes into the chance. It's like the uh, winning the lottery multiple times in a row. That is the likelihood of someone uh, just guessing the recovery phrase, right? And the way that AI works is that it's trying to construct a natural language sentence to sound like a coherent answer. So AI doesn't necessarily, uh, may not necessarily think about, you know, uh, the last word being a what is the word again? It's a checksum, for example. It may not construct the correct recovery phrase. There are a lot of things that AI can't do, and this isn't one of those problems that AI is generally geared towards solving. Um, I totally understand the reason why you'd be scared about it for sure. So 100%. But it isn't something I'd worry about with AI at all or anything like that. It's just infinitesimally small of a risk to be considering if someone even would be getting the same recovery phrase as yours if you have the right RNG in particular, right? So I wouldn't worry about it at all. I know I rambled a bit, but hopefully that does answer your question. All right. We'll keep going. Market cap, you mentioned if someone can have a look at your ticket. So I'll just pop that into the chat for myself and we'll have a look at that for you. I'm just going to send that straight to myself now. All right. Um, next question, when will Ledger support expector tokens? You can definitely have the developers reach out to us, and like I mentioned, to the developer Ledger developer portal, and then you'll be able to have the developers submit the token application, and our developers can look through that in particular. No time frame, unfortunately. It's the kind of thing we can't really go through and speculate on in particular or anything like that, unfortunately. I wish I could be more specific, but yeah, definitely not something I'd want to raise your hopes for or anything like that. All right, let's keep going. All right, next question as well. We had Richardson just talking to D Moore. I'm just going to double check D Moore's question. I'm not sure if I actually see it in particular. I don't remember this showing up, so we can have a chat with you, D Moore, if I actually see the question. All right, Tiago, yes, a mic would be nice. A mic would be nice if it would work, actually. So I'll have to double check that for the next one. Thanks, Tiago. We'll definitely try to fix that up for sure. Let's go on to Jigu, though. Has the ETA for the first batch of Ledger Stacks deliveries gotten any updates since the delayed email a couple months ago? That would be no, as far as I'm aware. Fortunately, I wish I could give you more info about that as well, but I don't have any more updates on that at this stage as well. Next up would be TB Bangers. Hello, you're curious to when we're going to get an update to the coin list? When can we get a UI update to view the date, time, price of coin when purchased? Can we also pay with Apple Pay with verification like Uniswap, quick and easy? Okay, so let's answer them one on one. In terms of when can we get updates to the coin list, definitely something they're updating pretty consistently, but no specifics as to when. Not 100% sure what you mean by the time, price, or price of coin. Generally speaking, you should be able to see that on chain. I've Scan up, for example, and you would be able to see, let's say if I go to a random account, you'll be able to see the transactions accordingly, and then you can double check the price at the time as well. So unless you're meaning if you purchased it with fiat, that would be something you can actually pull out as a CSV. If I bring up, well, that still hasn't loaded. If I bring that up in particular, you should be able to bring that, save that as well. And you can also get that as an email. I don't have any purchases in my history. Swaps definitely have a history where you can export as well if needed. So just a heads up for that one. All right, and you've mentioned when is the CL card coming to the US? I wouldn't be able to mention. I don't have any time frame for that as well. A lot of the when questions I do feel kind of bad not being able to answer you guys for. So definitely something I wish I had more info for you, but I'll definitely pass that on as feedback in particular. All right. B-Breaker, I might have missed your question there, but not on purpose. You mentioned when is the CL card coming to the US? And when is the CL card coming to the US? When is Centrifuge is not on MoonPay yet. Sorry, totally got mixed that up. Also, not something I'd be able to know in particular, but definitely something I'll pass on to the MoonPay team as well. Let me see if I can fix up the audio on my end. Just while we're live, see if that helps a little bit at all. But let's keep going and try and answer the questions. Elgato, 1947. Last fall, developers at TON Foundation sent Ledger a fully working plugin that allows the company's cold storage advisors to touch ton coin for unknown reasons. Ledger has yet to add support for Ton blockchain to its catalog of plugins, despite everything being ready and a request from Ton Foundation for a status update. When will Ledger support Ton Coin? You can definitely have the devs. I'm sure the devs are already on the Discord with us. I don't have a time frame for you to be able to tell you 100% or anything like that. I know it's really annoying. You could, if no likelihood, you might be able to. I was going to suggest a way to load up the ledger with applications, which is possible, but wouldn't be something I suggest for real assets. But yeah, it's something that the devs, especially the Donlin team, are potentially backed up on. Yeah, no time frame. I wish I could give you more with that one, mate. I'm sorry, Elgato. But I'll make sure to try and like give them a kick up the butt if I can. Anything, just to let them know you guys are waiting. In particular, I totally get it. So I'll try to have a chat with them or raise that for you as well, 100%. All right. Let's keep going. I'm maybe speeding those a bit quickly. So guys, if you guys have any questions, please pop them in the chat. Try to answer them as best I can. In particular, if I keep going, I see one in all caps. I see Esteban MacGregor. He said, "Is it safe to replace the Ledger Nano S screen?" I definitely wouldn't suggest it myself. If you have your recovery phrase, I'd suggest potentially just getting a new device or setting up your device with another hardware wallet, or in an emergency a software wallet if you need to manage your assets. I know it's something some people have done, but unless you're already skilled soldering, PCB replacement, that kind of thing, it's not something we generally suggest on our end at all, actually. So, yeah. Elgato, yeah, heard you loud and clear, mate. I'll make sure to try and reach out to them as well. But yeah, if I had a time frame, I'd definitely be shouting it from the rooftop from you guys. Right. KO13, you've mentioned. Where would you recommend staking ADA with a ledger? Definitely wouldn't be able to recommend who to stake it with or anything like that. But you should be able to do the research in terms of what is your risk profile, what are you willing to risk, what are the rewards that you want to get, and making sure you understand, what the technical risks are. If making sure you're being secure when you're doing so. I think that's probably the big thing that I always suggest, and then all the financial part, you just make sure you understand that you're willing to only willing to invest what you're willing to lose, essentially. But that's not financial advice, of course. I'm sure you hear it all the time. So definitely, just I would recommend being secure. Never share your recovery phrase, that kind of stuff, and you can do so either with a third-party wallet if you need to, or anything like that. So, 100%. Let's keep going. Marek, you mentioned, I would like to address poisoning scams. How is it possible for scammers to send you tokens and later also send them back from your wallet? Wouldn't they need your private keys, or can the smart contract on which they run create these transfers? That's 100% exactly how it would work. Basically, it would be the owner of the smart contract that would be essentially have kind of like admin rights, essentially. There can be, for example, an owner role for an NFT that you can actually send to and from that can actually manage the assets as their own. If I actually go into my accounts, I actually just deployed something myself, and if I go into the smart contract history, maybe we can see that in particular. But yeah, that's exactly how it would work. Essentially, someone can just either pull a contract themselves, or they can just put you in the transfer from function, for example, and that's another way that they can do it. So it is essentially just an admin role kind of thing that scammers are using to send to and from an address without your private keys in particular. So this is not the address, by the way. This is another address entirely. Boom. I thought that would have been it. Nope. Might have been something else. But that would have the same kind of functionality. Most NFTs would potentially have an owner function, an owner role. If they don't, someone might have renounced it as well. So you might see a lot of people, projects having renounced the ownership of NFTs, so that you know that they can't do anything with it. So just while I can spot this, Miss J, that doesn't look like a full ticket number. If you can raise that, if you give that full ticket number, normally it should be about 6 digits or more. That might be missing one or two numbers there in particular, just as a heads up there. So I can pick that up for you. But back to MG's question, follow up, you mentioned you remain skeptical because a lot is happening in AI. Clearly, crypto is safer on Ledger than anywhere. It is definitely the case because your recovery phrase is going to stay offline. And I think one of the important things here to think about is that I want to put this in a way with AI. It's just about constructing natural language. It's not. It isn't AGI. It hasn't. It doesn't even have the ability to understand, what the weather is today, that kind of thing. So it's important to know, like, the limitations of the AI as well. I definitely use it personally in terms of going through code that I've been writing, things like that. So it's definitely something that's really helpful. But I do want to think about stressing the limitations are going to keep it from being something in your specific question of being able to guess the 24 words. So that is definitely something that I don't think is going to be happening very soon, if at all. Let's keep going. Razvan, you mentioned Solana account still cannot be added. The 503 ever been having issues since February. In this case, I'd definitely be recommending, if you're not already, to be managing your assets with a third-party wallet. You might think something like Phantom, for example. You can manage your assets with that without inputting your recovery phrase. Just by going into the top here, and you can just go in and add and connect wallet. I know there's an internal case on it already to look into and managing and trying to resolve the issue. And if I understand it, it is intermittent. So I have been able to add and remove accounts just recently. But it obviously isn't the experience we want you guys to have. So there is at least a workaround for now, just with regards to that. So you can use something like Soulflare as well if you don't use Phantom, something like that. So really sorry about that. If you want, you can always raise a case. You can always raise a case with us, and we'll actually go about and put you on an email list, so I can actually just shoot you an email when that's sorted. Miss J, I just wanted to mention, because I still don't have that full ticket number. If you are still here, if you can actually drop that full ticket number in, and we'll try to. I'll try to help you out with that one when I get it. Right, Cayenne, HBAR deposits. When will they work again? Also, rates fixed already. Yeah, just one thing as well. If you were having issues, or if you ever continue to have issues like that in the future, you can use something like Hashpack to actually, or any third-party HBAR wallet to manage the assets in particular. And that way you can actually use that as an alternative as well. So 100% definitely something you can do. Miss J, it's definitely not. Just while I just see you put that in there, it's definitely not the ticket number. I thought normally we'd be going through to, and both with you and Razvan, support.ledger.com. Wait for it to come up, and there will be a little box right behind my screen in particular, where you'll be able to put in your question. So it's a purple contact us button. Normally, it should be more than 4 digits that you're getting the ticket number for, normally 6 if I remember correctly, and I'll be able to have a look at that for you. But that definitely looks a bit small, Miss J, so it's a bit weird that you're getting it like that. I'm just hoping you are going to support.ledger.com, so not DMing anyone or anything like that, and going from there. And same with Razvan, yeah, support.ledger.com, bottom right hand side, right behind my video here, and you'll be able to click on contact us, which is a purple button in particular, and you'll be able to raise cases from there. But while you guys are still here, just wanted to mention, if you guys have any questions with regards to managing your assets or anything like that, pop them into chat. That's from Discord. Okay. All right. Well, I'll message you on Discord then. I'll keep that in the future for me to know, and I'll message you there for that going forward. Now, with Razvan, yes, please raise a ticket with us through there if you want, and we can have a chat with you via email in particular, and we can go from there. But what I was going to mention is if you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat. I'll be here generally for the next about 22 minutes, unless there's not any other questions, and we can finish up early if we need to. Now, what I was going to mention is, generally speaking, I wanted to. Awesome, Ms. J. I'll make sure to follow up with you personally for that one. What I was going to mention for you guys was going to be the nonce, how to send a transaction with the same nonce. We do have an article about that in particular. I can actually bring that up if I just put this one. It's probably one of the most helpful things that I normally run across, in particular cancelling a transaction if I ever set something too low. That's the thing that I always do to kind of quote unquote cancel the transactions. All right, there is an important question here. Vincent Reed, you mentioned you had an unauthorized transfer from your ledger about a week ago and you lost the XRP. You mentioned you didn't give out the recovery phrase and you had to reset the ledger and start over. The only 2 things that I'd normally think that would be the case if you ever lost assets would be if now this is across multiple chains, generally speaking, or on chains where there's no smart contract functionality, would be that if someone had access to both the PIN and the ledger device, or if you ever entered the recovery phrase into any place that was not the ledger device itself. You may not have given it to an individual, but those would be the 2 things I might think are the only ways that someone could have managed your assets. The other one normally would just be with regards to smart contract functionality, so like a permit function. That's normally to do with EVM chains. So for example, the permit function, there might be something like, what is it called? Approve for all and things like that. So that's normally something I mention a little bit later. If it's only things that you've lost on an EVM chain like Ethereum or Polygon. But being that you mentioned you've lost XRP, my first thought would be if something even purporting to be Ledger Live would have asked you to kind of restore your assets or restore your recovery phrase or something like that would be what I would want to follow you on. But our general process would be that we would want to work with law enforcement as best we can. So normally the first thing I always suggest is if you want, generally, if there's some kind of resolution that you're hoping to get, you can liaise with law enforcement, and we'll try to work with them as best we can. Basically, we'll try to help them along the process, because those are the guys that are going to be the ones that enforce the law, and those are the only people that can actually compel anyone to, try to send you back your assets in particular. So that's the kind of thing that I'd normally be suggesting, and then we can try to reach out to them, and you can reach out to law enforcement. So once you've got that info, you can go to support.ledger.com, let us know that that's happened. You can give us like the email address, the police case ID, for example, and their email address and their name and stuff like that, and we can actually reach out to them and try to help them with their case as best as we can as well. So really sorry to hear that happen, Vincent. It's a tough pill to swallow for anyone. Totally understand, and we're going to try to help you through that as best we can. So MG, you mentioned that you study AI for graphics and for other things, and things go fast and not likely to worry, but there it looks like it got cut off there as well. And thank you, Ms. J, for the kind response. So it looks like a full-blown conversation happening in the chat at the moment. So next is, oops, there we go. Next we've got AI by itself will never be able to do anything that you would need an incredible amount of computing power. Not even quantum computers can do something like that in the foreseeable future, and I would tend to agree with that in particular. Just seem to be having some video issues as well now, so pretty tough stream today. But I would tend to agree with that, Marek, as well. Mantis, you mentioned, good morning. You're having trouble sending algo from your Ledger device. Every time you try to send it, Ledger does not allow you, but you are able to send your other crypto, and I'll take that number in particular. But the first thing I would think of is if your recovery phrase matches that of what was used to create the account in the first place. So that would be the first thing that I would think of that would be important to consider. Okay, something's gone down with the screen, and my ugly mug is still up there as well. So seeing as the questions seem to be dying down a bit, if you guys have any more questions, please pop them into the chat. Otherwise, we might even finish up here a little bit earlier than what I was expecting. Mantis, I'll definitely follow up with you, but first thing would always be to check if the recovery phrase was the same one that was used to check the account. MG, definitely don't worry about the AI. Totally understand the concern. Thanks, Marek, for definitely the questions. Let's answer this question. SBJJ, you mentioned, why does it say that updating Ledger Live firmware? I'm assuming you mean the Ledger device firmware. It could wipe your Ledger device clean. What are the chances of this? Generally not high, but it is possible. So that's why we normally mention to keep the recovery phrase, but do not enter it anywhere. That I just wanted to make sure to answer that last question, because it definitely can be quite stressful to see that in particular. So generally isn't going to happen unless it's going to be a very big update. So just wanted to make sure I answer that for you there. But with that being said, seeing that we've got a couple of these issues here, we'll get those fixed up, and then we have YouTube streams normally every day, or some kind of live every day. So tomorrow, if I remember correctly, there will be something on Twitter, and then we've got something going on YouTube on Thursday, as well as the Friday. There's something on Twitter as well. Yes,
SBJJ. Do not enter it anywhere ever except for the ledger device if you have to reset it in particular. Please, we hope just to keep you guys safe. So it's a good segue for me. Please, guys, don't ever enter your recovery phrase anywhere that isn't the ledger device itself. And don't sign any transactions you don't trust. We want you guys to stay safe. Please stay safe in the markets out there. Hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Thanks.